Jim Monaghan, Chris Swendeman. We're back with the 2 Minute Drill podcast with a very special guest this week, the longtime radio voice of the New York Giants, Bob Papa. Welcome to the 2 Minute Drill.
Hey guys, pleasure to be with you. And Jim, the New York Football Giants. I know the San Francisco Giants left New York in the '50s, but it still is the Giants' official corporate name. So,
how long have you been doing the games, the play-by-play on radio now, Bob? I lost track.
Full time since '95. I filled in for Jim Gordon in '93. I filled in for him in '94. Started doing the Giants Point After on the great WNEW back in '88. Invented that show and then the Tailgate show. And so I've been with the team pretty much for as long as I've known you, Jim.
Yeah, which is going back into the mid-'80s. Bob and I worked together at WNEW FM, and then I was with the AM for a little while. It's a back-and-forth radio type of thing. Bob, I want to start with the rookie sensation, Jaxson Dart. We had the first win that they got, and for me, it was, I don't know if I want to say beginner's luck or not, but all right, you get the win under your belt. The second game after that, he kind of comes back to earth. And then there was the win over the Eagles in the most recent game. Which one of those three is closest to the real Jaxson Dart?
Ooh, that's a good question because he's an unfinished product. How could we really tell what the real Jaxson Dart is just 3 starts in? But I think he gives Giants fans a lot of hope. He played great. In that win against the Chargers, considering that they were 3-0 and coming into the game, most people figured that they had the best team in the league or one of the best teams in the league. And they went wire to wire in winning that game. And then, the New Orleans game, he played like a rookie. I mean, there were a zillion opportunities in that game for them to win. They had guys running wide open that you can't see when you're watching on TV. He just didn't see the field. And he saw it better against Philadelphia. And I think what he brings to the table is a lot of energy. You got to live and die with some of the ups and the downs. But if you just see progress every week, I think Giants fans will be happy.
You mentioned the Saints game, and Charlotte Carroll, who covers the Giants for The Athletic, pointed out that despite the 5 turnovers and the points where he looked like a rookie, that game wasn't as bad as you might have thought. And I'm not sure I entirely agree with her. I see the point that she was trying to make. It was kind of, a growth for Dart, but maybe baby steps.
Well, remember something, Jim. They turned it over 5 times on 5 straight possessions. Every one of those, and they had no takeaways. So every turnover that they had in that game was in plus territory. So they had to move the ball to get to plus territory. Darius Slayton dropped a deep ball that, look, being in the building, calling the game, the Giants had scored touchdowns on their first 2 possessions, and New Orleans, they were a winless football team, and they were kind of looking for a way out, so to speak. And if Darius Slayton catches that deep ball, who knows what happens with the rest of that game. Then he drops the flea flicker. It was a little underthrown, but you're a veteran receiver supposed to catch that. And then Slayton fumbled near the end of the first half, like the in plus territory at the 35-yard line. And then Dart fumbles to start the third quarter. He wasn't even hit. He was trying to juke somebody. The ball hit his thigh. And then a little bit desperation, he threw the interceptions. But, yeah, I mean, listen, in the fourth quarter with all those turnovers, Skattebo fumbled at the 10-yard line. It was returned 80-something yards the other way. The Giants were a touchdown away from taking the lead at that point. So as bad as it was, there still were positives in the game with the way he moved the football team.
Bob, building on Dart, and you just mentioned Skattebo, which goes into my question. Basically, this has been a team where you've had standout leaders over the years, whether it be LT, Carson, and Sims, more recently, Eli and Strahan. Do Dart and Skattebo show you enough that they could be the next generation of Giant leaders for this team? Because between Dart and his moxie and Skattebo being an absolute lunatic, it seems like for a long time they didn't have those character guys after Eli and Strahan. Can these be the two to lead them into the next generation?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what you want your quarterback to be to start with. They have some leaders there with Dexter Lawrence and Andrew Thomas when he's healthy, a little quiet type. Brian Burns is a fiery kind of leader who's playing out of his mind this year. But yeah, Jaxson Dart has a little bit of that it factor, however you want to call it. But, Charlie Weiss, the longtime offensive coordinator for the Patriots and head coach at Notre Dame, he said that, he always talks about the Pied Piper effect. But he always said that about Baker Mayfield. He's got that kind of personality where everybody jumps in line behind him. And Charlie Weiss's son is the offensive coordinator at Ole Miss. And Jaxson Dart had that in college. He was beloved by the defensive players in that locker room at Ole Miss. In fact, Jaxson Dart, now with the NIL, where college football has become pro football, Jaxson Dart was leading the recruiting effort of players to try to get both offensive guys and defensive guys to Ole Miss. So he has that little something. Now, that's great, but you got to also produce on the field. There's been many guys that have had that leadership quality, but if you stink, it doesn't really matter at quarterback. But I think he's got the potential to be that kind of player that the Giants sorely need.
I did not see a lot of Dart in college. I don't follow the college game very much, but what I'm seeing now of him as a pro, a lot more poise than I would have expected. And again, we're only 3 games into his career, but that's one of the things, Bob, that stands out for me when he takes the ball.
I started watching a lot of Ole Miss games because I was doing my show on Sirius XM NFL radio with Charlie Weiss every day. And so I started watching Ole Miss because I was kind of rooting for his son. Plus, they played a lot in that TV window on CBS when CBS still had the SEC. And he has a pro-style feel to him. And listen, this whole thing of taking on defenders when he runs, that was a talking point in college with him too. And can't seem to get that out of him, which is going to get him killed in the NFL if he keeps doing it. But he has a lot of poise. He's a really fierce competitor. And he's one of these guys that just bring it on. He relishes like the big moment. And I loved what he said after the game when he was being interviewed. And it was like, listen, since Plaxico Burress shot himself in the leg, the Giants had lost 27 of 34 games against the Eagles. They've been completely dominated. And he said, I heard the negativity about Philadelphia and the negativity about this football team. He's like, I wasn't here for any of that. I had nothing to do with any of that. And some of us young guys, we haven't been here for any of that stuff. We don't know anything about that. All we know is who we're playing this weekend. Skattebo said the same thing. The fact that they could verbalize that was kind of cool. And it's like, hey, that's in the past. We're starting anew now. And obviously it showed last Thursday night.
Let's stay with the Eagles for just a second, because I know the Giants are going to see them in the not too distant future. Saquon Barkley, I think there's something wrong there. And I also think that Hurts might be playing a little hurt. Something's not firing for this team.
Well, everyone says, teams are committing extra people in the box. Of course they are. They did it halfway through last year, too, against them. Everybody knew Saquon was going to run, and he had a record-setting year. Here's the problem for the Eagles. Their left guard, Landon Dickerson, who didn't play the other night, has been dealing with injuries throughout camp. Missed a lot of training camp. He's injured again. The center, remember, he had issues in the Super Bowl. He's coming off an offseason back surgery. The right guard was Mekhi Becton, the former Jet, who was lights out last year. He signed a big free agent contract with the Chargers. The guy who replaced him is not as good as he is. And the right tackle, Lane Johnson, is at the end of his career. He's older. So you couple all that with the fact that now you have a new offensive coordinator, and maybe how they're sequencing play calls, how they're structuring their offense is not the same as when Kellen Moore was there. There's an art to dialing up the plays. But I think first and foremost, it starts with the guys up there. Their offensive line, which was the best in the NFL for a couple of years, is not the same offensive line that walked off the field when they demolished Kansas City in the Super Bowl.
Over the past few weeks, Bob, Chris, and I have been talking about quarterbacks who used to be here in New York and are experiencing some pretty decent success elsewhere. One of those, why can't we get guys like that? And Daniel Jones would be number one on the score chart. Like, there, you look at what he's done with the Indianapolis Colts so far, and it's not Jones's fault that the Giants gave him the contract that he did, but he didn't live up to it. He gets out of town and is having a wonderful season. Mac Jones leaves New England. He's having a pretty good year. Sam Darnold gets away from the Jets. He's having a decent year. And Chris, you made a really good point last week about taking more time for quarterbacks to develop.
Well, and even Baker Mayfield spent some time with the Rams, and he's have a renaissance of a career. You know what the connecting factor is all that? McVay, Shanahan, and O'Connell, who all grew up together in the coaching ranks. Daniel Jones was on the Andrew Whitworth, Ryan Fitzpatrick podcast last week, and they were asking him about his development as a player. And he said, listen, he goes, I thought I knew how to prepare. I thought I knew how to break defenses. I thought I knew how to put the mental work in during the week. And then I went to Minnesota last year, and it was like, oh my gosh, it was like going from an undergraduate degree to master class of what Kevin O'Connell does with quarterbacks. And that really helped Daniel Jones a lot. Sam Darnold spent time in San Francisco under Shanahan in his system. Mac Jones, hey, look, Shanahan, at least if you believe the reports, he wanted to draft Mac Jones. They decided as an organization to trade up for Trey Lance, but it's not like they didn't like Mac Jones because he's like a perfect fit for what they do offensively. You got to be in the right place at the right time. Like, I'm watching Daniel Jones now. He looks like the rookie Daniel Jones, letting it rip all over the field. But when you keep changing head coaches and general managers and coordinators and offensive line coaches, you're setting your quarterbacks up to fail. I mean, Mac Jones, his rookie season, with Josh McDaniels as his OC, went to the Pro Bowl. And then the next year, they made Matt Patricia and Joe Judge the offensive coordinators. That's not good for a quarterback's development. Sam Darnold was in this revolving door with the Jets, and then he and Baker were in this revolving door in Carolina. And Baker was in a dysfunctional Cleveland organization. You look at Peyton Manning, you look at Tom Brady, you look at Eli Manning, you look at like the top guys over the last 25 years, most of them, if they get drafted by a team, the ones that had the best success, Mahomes, Joe Burrow, they have the same head coach, the same general manager, the same offensive coordinator for the developmental part of their careers. And that's why they have great success. You look at Daniel Jones, Pat Shurmur. He loved Pat Shurmur. He loved Mike Shula as his OC. He connected with those guys. He had 24 touchdowns and 12 interceptions his rookie year. Fumbling was his problem, not throwing interceptions. And then they switch coach. They switch offensive, 2 offensive coordinators in 2 years, 3 different offensive line coaches. Then they cycle those guys out, and another regime comes in. Like, it's not easy when that's how you ruin quarterbacks. Is Zach Wilson, same thing with the Jets. You keep churning that coaching staff around, and those guys have no chance.
Look at Cam Ward. Cam Ward just lost his head coach. He's turning over before he's even halfway through his rookie season. He might be in for the same thing. Drafting a quarterback high does not guarantee the coach job security. Urban Meyer drafted Trevor Lawrence. He got whacked. Eberflus got whacked in Caleb Williams' first year. Frank Reich got whacked in Bryce Young's first year. Now you got Cam Ward. Everyone says, they're going to take the quarterback that buys the head coach time. Not necessarily. You better show progress, and you better not play lousy, or else you're going to be out of a job.
You mentioned NIL money before, and obviously the college game is changing a lot, has changed, and will continue to change.
There's only 3 major college football teams left. College football teams. It's Army, Navy, and Air Force. They're the only 3 left. Every other one of them has NIL. You got guys switching rosters every year. Guys are getting paid. So there really is no college football anymore on the Division I major level.
What effect do you think, if any, Bob, this is going to have ultimately on the NFL game?
We're starting to see some of the effects of it, right? I mean, guys are coming into the league now with more money than they ever had, and you can never measure a player's heart. I talked with an owner, not a New York owner, an owner from another team, and they said, "Look, we spend millions of dollars a year researching these players' backgrounds, but you can't measure what's in their heart and in their brain." And we've had guys that have come from no money, that get money, and they're like model citizens. We have guys that come from well-heeled backgrounds, upper middle class to upper class backgrounds, and they go batshit crazy when they get money in their pocket. So you can never really tell. But it's definitely changed things. And I think one of the things that these guys are having a problem with, and we're going to see more of it, is now with money in college sports, if these guys don't like what's happening at the school, they go in the transfer portal, they pocket a couple million more, and they just go play somewhere else. In the NFL, you don't get to do that. You get drafted, like you're there. And some of these guys are having a hard time grasping the concept of, like, I'm in this. There's no escaping it. I got to man up. And some guys wilt under that.
You think the hunger's not there as they're coming in now, Bob, as opposed to when they were coming in as a rookie and they want to make their mark to make their money. Now they're already making money. Do you think some of them, I used to talk about heart, but there's also that hunger that they want to succeed. Do you think that's just not there for some of these guys now?
Yeah, I'm going to say there's a percentage of them. I mean, listen, I've been told stories about guys that get drafted in the first round and then they just mail it in, because their whole goal in life was to maybe make it to the NFL. And the fact that they were a first round pick, like, they've accomplished their goal. They didn't burn to be a star. They didn't burn to make it. And remember too, it's 53-man rosters with 16-man practice squads. And a lot of these guys are coming from schools where they weren't getting paid that much money anyway. I mean, there's a lot of guys in the league that started 10 of 48 games when they were in college. They might have gotten some money, but they're not big ticket guys. So I don't think the money has dissuaded guys' desire to try. I think maybe in certain cases you see some guys stay in college longer. There's like guys in college now that are like 6-7 years in college, especially if you're a quarterback.
Yep.
If you don't think you're going to go high in the draft, you may stay and pocket an extra $6 million to go play for another school. But the probabilities are, you kind of in your heart probably know you're not cut out to play in the NFL and you're not going to really make it anyway.
Yeah, that has really affected college baseball, where you can go JUCO and still have your full 4 years of eligibility at a 4-year school, and then you have a redshirt year available as well. I mean, you'll be there a long time. So you come in as, let's say, a freshman, an 18-year-old freshman, legit freshman. You're playing against a guy that's 26 years old.
Yeah, it's hard. Listen, I've seen it doing all the college golf that I've done for Golf Channel. I've seen with the transfer portal, which really became a big thing in college golf. That was one of the first ones where people started moving way more than football players and basketball players, and they were getting paid money by these schools to switch in the golf program, and then you start getting corporate money thrown in there, and next thing you know, guys are all logoed out. Even though they can't wear the logos during college golf tournaments, they can wear the logos if they get invited to play in a pro event as a top amateur. If they qualify for the Masters, as we've seen, they can wear logos if they qualify for the U.S. Open. So these guys are getting paid a lot of money. I mean, Rose Zhang, the star at Stanford, who's now gone on to have a successful pro career, she was getting a ton of money when she was playing at Stanford.
When does the pendulum swing back? Because it ultimately will. It's gone so far in favor of the players. When does it swing back?
I don't know if it's swinging back anytime soon, because there's, like, in the college sports, I mean, eventually, here's what's going to happen, in my opinion. These major conferences in college football are going to just say to the NCAA, screw you, We're starting our own league. We're going to negotiate our own TV contracts, and everybody else is out. And the NCAA will be for basically non-revenue sports and probably have to stick around for basketball. But I think football is going to break off eventually and just form their own mega league.
And then are we looking at a merger with the NFL?
No. I think you'll get network TV executives that know how to put the packages together and negotiate deals. And I think these conferences will just kind of come together and they'll just create like college football leagues under the guise of specific conferences. But let's face it, with teams that are now playing in the Big Ten from the West Coast, do the college conferences even mean that much anymore with the influx of teams that are from non-geographical areas from where those conferences originally started? So I think we're heading closer to like pro sports and college football.
Put a whole different spin on Saturday, that's for sure.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. I mean, they try to make it seem like it's rah-rah college and all that other stuff, but I mean, it's pro ball, isn't it?
It's a business.
Big business.
Let me
and
switch
it's funding all those non-revenue sports.
Let me switch sports for just a second. I know you're a huge Yankee fan. And
thank God it's over.
You talked about
Bob,
earlier,
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Yeah, he's a big Yankee fan, Bob. Chris is. You talked about earlier when we were talking about quarterbacks and needing some stability, whether it was the manager or the general manager, whatever it is. The Yankees have obviously had that stability with the general manager and with the field manager in Aaron Boone. At what point, because it's not working, and whether that's the roster that Boone's been given or what, at what point does this team need a new voice, whether it's Boone, Cashman, or both?
Is it not working?
Well, I mean, it depends on your point of view. In
terms
of
here's
World
my
Series
theory.
or bust, no, it's not working. It hasn't been for a while.
I'm going to give you my theory. And I floated this theory I've talked about this with numerous people who are dyed-in-the-wool Yankee fans, some older than me. I honestly believe that the Steinbrenner family does not necessarily have the same passion to win World Series that their father did. I think the Yankees now are run by a business, and I think the goal for the Yankees is to have a team that has stars that will sell out Yankee Stadium virtually every night, will get a tremendous draw in every road game that they play. They'll go to stadiums that are a third full on every other night, but the 3 times the Yankees come in, they're going to get that gate. Make sure we win between 92 and 98 games a year to make sure we get in the playoffs, have some home playoff games. Yes, network is profitable. Concessions, season ticket sales for the next year. Nobody's turned, because there's always the hope. They got so close. And last year, I mean, that was like, other than not winning, it was perfect. They got to the World Series. So now it's like, see, they can get to the World Series. Because if you really look at it, and you guys are both baseball guys, you and I, we all know what championship baseball teams look like. It's having the Jason Varitek's of the world for your team. It's having, players for the Yankees that were like Paul O'Neill's and even the Scott Brociouses and Posadas and all these guys that rose to the occasion and hit the other way, sacrificed themselves, sound defensively, fundamentally smart baseball players. And if you look at the Yankees, look, the greatest indictment ever was after the World Series. The Dodgers, to a man, publicly said what their game plan was. Put the ball in play. We know they'll boot it. Yeah. Just make sure we put the ball in play. And that's what happened in the World Series. And the Yankees' season came to an end on what should have been an inning-ending double play that was booted because of lackadaisical fielding. But Jazz is great over the course of 162 games with the absolutely ridiculous sliding gloves and all the colored batting gloves and different gloves every night. gets on those hot streaks, and he'll hit 6 home runs over an 8-day span, and the bat flip, and all that's great. Night in and night out, bludgeon bad teams. But is that what it takes to win? Absolutely not. But I'm not sure that they're that concerned with necessarily winning the World Series. Right now, their business model is pretty damn good with what they're doing.
You know, something, Bob, that we talk about on this podcast a lot is Anthony Volpe. And being that we spoke before about what it takes to get a QB matured and get him into a successful program, is the only way Volpe's going to have success is to find another team at some point and hit the reset button?
That's a really good question because I think he's a good player. Heck, I coached against him. My son Will and is the same age. We used to play 50, 70 baseball against Volpe's teams and Leiter's teams all the time with the Chatham kids. I don't know. Like, is it become too much? Like, you look at how many players have come to New York and shrunk because it's different. It's like being in the NFL. You could play for the Arizona Cardinals or the Tennessee Titans, or you could play for an NFC East team or one of those big teams where every game is on national TV or it's in the late window. You know, every night Volpe's in a pressure cooker. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's attention to detail with the coaching staff. I don't know if it's his own self-discipline. We all know the same thing. When he starts hitting the other way and not opening up his hip and not trying to jack home runs, he becomes a very effective player. Now, his defense definitely picked up at the back end of the year but I think all that stuff got tied in together. Yeah, maybe it is having to go somewhere else where he could go play and be free. There's a lot of pressure on him, you know, with the whole Phil Rizzuto and the Italian shortstop and the local kid, and then following in the footsteps of Jeter. You know, it's hard to be that guy. And I kind of feel bad for him, but he certainly tries hard. I mean, and he's loved in the locker room. Maybe he'll mature. I don't know. But until he gets out of this, I'm going to join the home run party, he's doomed.
I saw a lot of his games junior and senior year in high school, and Bobby had the best hands of any high school player I've ever seen. You know, excelled at every level, but we're not in high school anymore. And I do think, like you said, I don't think it's entirely his fault. I think the Yankees rushed him. What did he have, 92 at bats in AAA? At the beginning of the 2023 season, he had a great spring training, and I would have set him down and said, Anthony, we love you, and you're going to be here in June or July. Go get some ABs. Figure it out at the AAA level, and you will be here. Mark my words. I think they could have done that, and I just think they rushed him. And that was one of the things that we were worried about with Jaxson Dart, you know, a few weeks ago. Dart, for whatever reason, has been able to come in and go, hey, yeah, I'm good. I got this, and be able to deliver. Again, it's really early in Dart's career. We're only 3 games in, but there is a poise on the field that you see with him that leads you to believe maybe we really do have something here.
Yeah, and the thing with Volpe is in baseball, you have the luxury of being able to send a guy down, right? In the NFL, where Jaxson Dart's either watching or he's playing. And at some point, you're going to have to play. And listen, is he playing probably earlier than in their overall plan it should have gone? Yeah, probably. I think they wanted him to sit longer, but desperate times call for desperate measures. And the Russell Wilson Kansas City performance, I think, kind of flipped the script on everything. But yeah, with Volpe, I'm 100% with you. But again, it goes back to that thing, Chris, and I don't know if you agree with it. And Jim, you know, we've talked about it. Are the Yankees really thinking about how do we build the right team to win a World Series, or does bringing up the hometown kid from nearby Italian just vault him in to the starting lineup from day one, as opposed to it's 162 games. Bring him up in the middle of the season. Let him get more at bats in the minor leagues. What's the rush? I don't know.
Bob, for listeners who want to follow you, where do they go?
Well, you can follow me on X at @BobPapa_NFL. I'm on Sirius XM NFL Radio every day from 10 to noon. I got 2 podcasts, Believe in Giants with Carl Banks and the ManjaCast with Chris Bizignano. So if you go to the Believe Podcast Network, you can see me there. And then Golf Channel. When football's not going, I'm announcing Champions Tour and PGA Tour stuff.
Chris, I told you he works constantly.
Tell you, hardest working man in sports right here, and we got him on our podcast. Look at that.
It's always good to talk to you guys.
Well, Bob, you might not know, but as we say, Ted Brown actually is where I got this from. If you like what we do, tell a friend. If you don't like what we do, tell an enemy, but just tell somebody. I've never forgotten that from Ted.
That's how I end the Believe in Giants podcast with Carl Banks. We end it with tell a friend to tell a friend, believe in Giants. But I was, you know what, Jim? You just jogged something that probably was sitting in the back of my head from Ted Brown from my very early days at NEW with the tell a friend or tell an enemy. And I probably forgot the enemy part, but that's where that came from.
That's where it came from. You're welcome for the memory. Follow us, like, subscribe, do all the good stuff, and we'll talk to you next week. And once again, thanks, Bob. Appreciate your time.
Anytime, guys.